Music. Whoa, okay. Life as well as a musician, as well as a physics teacher and a tech addict, nerd, whatever. Combining music, science and technology. And of course, my life, like everybody's, started when I was very young. I wasn't very long, still not. But and the house where I grew up, in a small village, was looking across the fields in front of me, where the tractors and the harvesters were working, and was at a young age already really fascinated by those machines. Also, of course, as a young boy, I was playing with Lego. At a young age, we got a computer in our home, and I started gaming, of course, and programming a little bit. So I think technology and maybe also science was quite early in my life already. And then in my young teenage years, I got a clarinet. This is a bass clarinet, but I started on the normal one. And from that moment on, I think music, if I remember well, started slowly taking over my life. I studied clarinet. Sometimes I liked it, sometimes not, but you know, you're a teenager, so nothing strange about that. And I started also composing a little bit, and that music was taking a bigger part of my life. Wasn't that obvious, because my clarinet teacher, he was really a very tough guy. He was really strict, and he could, yeah. But as he noticed, I was becoming interested in music more and more, and also in theory. He also became very supportive. So he still was very and so on, tough. But he also, so he helped me with the music theory and the things I want to know. He supported me in that. And at some point, I came into my life around my 18th. I had to choose what I was going to study, of course. So should I go for music, or should I go for something scientific, technological thing, mathematics, chemistry, maybe electrotechnics or whatever. But in the end, or maybe music. So adult people, my teachers in high school, also my music teacher, and of course my parents, adult people who are very wise, of course, like adult people are, advised me to go for the safety choice, and I chose for physics. And of course I chose physics because, like everybody knows, and there are a few people in the hall here, that physics is kind of the king or maybe even the emperor of all sciences and mathematics. Yeah, I know. So I chose to go for physics because as a teenager you always listen very well to what adult people had to say. So I chose to go that way. And that's how I ended up here in Eindhoven. And when I came to Eindhoven as a young student, I immediately joined the student concert band because I want to keep playing music. But at that point I saw it as a hobby, really. So I kept the two kind of separated. So during daytime I was studying physics, and in the evening doing music and having beers with friends. Yeah, I thought that went well for the first 2 years, but also here in Eindhoven, the music started taking over more and more time in my life. I became president of student concert band. I picked up composing. Even some pieces got performed by the student concert bands and some other bands across Europe. So I played in a pop band, traveling from parties to bars. So yeah, it became more and more part of my life. While my physics studies, I took less and less time. So friends of mine are here, they know. So at some point, I thought, you know, I want to do more with this music thing. I also wanted to meet more peers who would be at a high level playing music. So I applied for the conservatory in Tilburg, got accepted. So I started studying clarinet in Tilburg. And I thought, yes, finally, I'm there. in this inspiring environment, meeting all these nice people. I did. I made some good friends there, nice people. But I also was kind of pushed in a way that, yeah, not forced, but kind of directed in a way that I should play mostly the standard repertoire. And I was more like I wanted to search for new music, maybe experimenting. Still not with the science and technology part, it still kept kind of separated, I don't know why, in my life. So, but I got through in a very good way, by the way, so it was really great being on the conservatory. I did my final exam, after I also got a master in science education here at the university, so all ended well in this kind of sense. But during my conservatory, I also started playing the bass clarinet. And when I finished, I played in some ensembles and I started spending more time on this great instrument. And I wanted to learn more about it. And so I contacted one of the, at that time, and still maybe is, one of the most world-renowned bass clarinet teachers and performers, and his name is Henri Bok, and he was teaching in Rotterdam, so it's not so far away. And I think my musical career until now, it's one of the best decisions I ever made, to send him an email. A day later, he called me back. We made an appointment. I went there. Was kind of nervous because, you know, big name, and you had to play with him, but it was really good. And he was kind of the opposite what I met in Tilburg. He was really stimulating to go my own way, to find my own way, not only with me, but also with my fellow bass clarinet players, students. So to find my own way. Work with composers, start creating things yourself. And he also brought me into contact with the Swiss clarinet player and teacher, Matthias Müller. Matthias Müller is still a teacher in Zurich at the conservatory over there. And at that time, we're talking about, I think, kind of 10 years ago, Matthias was developing some sensor technology, or he was experimenting with. He was doing some research to a sensor-augmented bass clarinet, kind of sensor-augmented bass clarinet research. And for short, it's SABRE, like a scientist knows. So I came into contact. I went to Zurich to talk with them. Maybe I could join the team, but then life happened. I moved. An allowance I got from the government to build up my music practice got suddenly quite suddenly. And so I let it rest for a little bit. But the idea to combine music, science, technology kept stuck in my head. And was, why am I not combining those fields of interest and my expertise is in that? And in between, I just continued. And then somebody pointed me towards a composing contest. So I'm going to the other direction. And that's the point I took part in the composing contest. It was organized by a Belgian concert band. And I composed, I think, I can regard it as as my first composition or music thing where I am combining music with, in this case, mathematics or computer science. And the piece was called Binary Digits. I'm not going in full detail about the piece. You can ask me afterwards during the drink a little bit or listen on my website to it. But for short, the piece is constructed in a binary way. I used the zeros and the ones computers used to communicate with each other to construct the piece and to compose the piece. Unfortunately, I didn't win the contest, but it got been picked up by an Eindhoven conductor, and 1 year later it has been world premiered in the concert hall here in Eindhoven. So it was a very nice kickoff. Also the Eindhoven Dagblad paid some attention to it, so yeah, it was really nice. And slowly more ideas came to mind. One of the ideas, and that was kind of the initiative to start up my foundation. You all found a folder about it. And I'm going to tell about the foundation a little bit later. And that was with my trio. I have a trio with a violin player and a piano player, Rodinia. And the piano player also happens to be a physics teacher. So we came up with the idea to communicate physics stuff like Schrödinger's cat or some other stuff like unitary movement or some other things from physics through music. So we thought, oh, we're going to compose or work with composers to make some pieces that would have the sound of, like, for example, Schrödinger's cat. We can tell a little bit about it, and then we're going to perform, and we have a nice music concert telling story. But we found out it was quite hard to convince people funds to with the story. So it didn't really got any attraction or very little, unfortunately. We still want to do this project in the future, but I don't know when. But also at some point I never lost contact with Matthias Müller, so we always kept in touch. And he was organizing a festival in Zurich a few years ago along the sensor thing and the bass clarinet. So I went there, and there were some other fellow musicians from Belgium, England, working with acoustical instruments and sensors and some other electronics. And it's quite unique in my opinion, because normally when you perform electronic music, it's mostly electronic, and if you want to combine it with acoustical instruments, maybe the guitar is an exception, you need, albeit a pre-recorded tape, nowadays digital, or you need someone with a laptop or some synthesizer to help you out with combining it and mixing it. But with sensor technology, like you heard in the first piece, I can do it all by myself, controlling the electronics while playing the bass clarinet. And so I started in the pandemic, I started experimenting with it. I came back to Switzerland with sensors, and I started playing with it. And then I found out a few things. This technology, and of course using technology, opens up, for my feeling, an endless way of possibilities. Maybe too much in the beginning, so your head explodes, oh, I can do this. But on the other way, and first when I laid hand on the sensors, it's kind of a toy, you know? I started using it, and you can woo, 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 and make some nice sounds with it and playing around with it. But I don't think you're all here to come to see me playing with a toy. And I think that happens a lot, that I met some engineers in the past developing some nice gadgets to control light or sound or whatever. And then I'll ask them, no offense for them, because it's great that they are developing, what do you want to do with it in a creative way or artistic way? And then sometimes they are a little offended by this question, because they are really proud on the gadget, and they should be, but you know, it should be more than just a gadget. And that's one of the goals with the foundation I put up, to connect engineers with composers, for example, or other musicians. But I didn't develop the gadgets myself, but I can compose a little bit and perform, so yeah, I can do it myself. And because, you know, with some software and the gadget, I can transform like this, and I hope it works. Oh no, I have to start the song first. That one, yeah. I'm going to let here, I can't, that didn't, something went wrong. I'm not sure if it will go, no, it's not, sorry. So, I have to adjust something, sorry for that. Yeah. Okay. I hope it will work now. Because one of the nice things I can do with things I don't, turn this one, for example, into a kick drum. and I hope it will work, and use my hands as a snare drum. So, and of course that's nice effect, but afterwards I thought, now let's create a piece with it. So I'm first going to show you the toy part, and then I'm going to show you, I hope you enjoy the artistic part. And if Robert would be so kind to turn. Of course, always in my studio everything works, and one of the movements didn't do anything. So, yeah. In the end, I heard you enjoyed. So to conclude, I'm still hearable because I dropped. Yeah, okay. To conclude the story, I think combining in the end, because I kept my expertise separated for I don't know why, quite a long time in my life. But combining these expertises created a lot of new possibilities. I noticed that this kind of technology attracts a lot of people. A lot of people are interested in it, not only in this region, but also outside. And I think also within companies, research facilities, people should more combine their expertises, their interest hobbies, bring them to work, or maybe the other way around. Because sometimes if you connect two fields of interest that are completely different at first sight, if you bring them together, something interesting and sometimes beautiful things can happen. It's not a guarantee, of course, but it's a possibility. I want to finish up. Before we continue to drinks, and I will give a little word to Anouk. You can ask some questions, and if you like, I would like, as a final thing, play one more piece, and then we go for the drinks. So first Anouk, then the questions, and then some more music.
You should tell something about the foundation.
Oh yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, because I had a lot of ideas because more things are popping up in my head, like every week, every day. Also, I put up the foundation, started it to connect music with science and technology. This is one of the projects. Another project I'm currently working on is together with a student team of the university. They are developing a sleeve that can translate audio signals into vibrational patterns on the skin. And together with probably Vera Hofman, a Tilburg conductor, composer, we're going to compose two pieces for it, which you can listen to and feel literally at the same time. And to make all these kind of projects have some house for them, and also for financial reasons, to be honest, because some funds only fund non-profit organizations. But also to make the organization a little bit more stable, I came with the idea with the foundation. And also I hope the future project with the physics and the trio will be possible with it. And one of the ideas is maybe organizing debate, maybe together with Innovation Café, about the role of artificial intelligence within creating music, because I know some people are composers mainly are scared that it will take over. And so I think more ideas are welcome, of course. If you want to connect with music, or some musicians maybe connect with technology, please let me know and we can work out maybe some nice stuff. Okay. Anouk.
So thanks a lot, Stephen, for this very creative talk and giving us also many ideas for new topics. We are still going to talk to you with questions, and we still have a performance. But I just wanted to mention that we are here every week. Check out the website ehvinnovationcafe.org for our following presentations. Next week we have Lieke Vermeulen here talking about her board game design and how it can help people understanding what it's like to live with chronic diseases. For tonight, stay seated until the last song has been played, but then afterwards you're welcome to have a drink at the bar. We'll provide a few snacks, and you're also welcome to stay for the meetup table for a meal. We have a celeriac today on offer, but I will come and ask you afterwards if you're interested. But thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of the talk. Shoot if you have any questions, and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. So, any questions? I know you always have questions, so yeah.
Thanks a lot for bringing music to Innovation Café. Yeah. We need more music in our
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I have a very trivial question. This is running on MIDI?
Partly. This is the ring I'm wearing. So, and this device, there are motion sensors like you all have in your phone. There's also, you couldn't have seen, but there's also air pressure sensor, but I'm not using it. I haven't used it yet any time. This is a small amplifier because inside here is the microphone, and that's just a wireless transmitter. So they are mostly the motion sensor I use. There are also two buttons on top, so I can start, stop songs or whatever. And this ring I have on is also a motion sensor ring with 3 buttons on it, so I can stop and start things or switch some songs. This one communicates mainly through MIDI. This one has his own. This one also has his own software with it, but this one also. But I prefer using open sound control. It's for the technical people. It's a network protocol based on the UDP protocol, and it's kind of MIDI plus, and it's much more flexible than MIDI. It's a server-client system like the internet works, so I can put up servers, send data there to there, and receive data from back. And MIDI is more like a stupid protocol. It's also 40 years old still, but you know, with MIDI it's so weird because I think it's invented somewhere in the beginning of the 80s or maybe end of 70s, but I think somewhere in the 80s. What? Early, yeah, 70s, beginning 80s, I'm not sure. And it's still used everywhere, you know, so you cannot, I think, hardly do, but this one mainly communicates because in the software there's no possibility. So I have some software converting MIDI signals to open sound control, and then in the music software I can read the things. So, your question also?
Yeah, I figured out when I saw you.
Yeah, and yeah, normally when I was waving it should quit the drums and some other tracks, but I don't know why it, like I told, in the studio it worked every time when I rehearsed it, but here not, so I don't know, I have to check for it. Yeah, also, yeah, and I think it's the first time I performed that not everything went like I wanted, so until now I'm very trustworthy in the technology I used. And I mostly also tested quite thoroughly, and I thought I did, but yeah, not enough. What?
Yeah, that not everything worked out.
Yeah, then you have to improvise, you know, yeah. And so that's the challenge also. But you know, these electronics can fail, but I also played concerts on my B flat, and I can remember one of the concerts, and I was concert master, and I think a few minutes before I had to play a solo part in some Verdi piece. And it was a duo solo with a clarinet player next to me. One of the pads from my keys got loose, so I couldn't play anymore. So it was really like, and the guy next to me took over the first part, so he also kind of improvised. So not only the electronics can fail, this is a mechanical thing, and yeah, can also fail at some point. I hope it will not happen, but you never know. More, yeah.
What do you use for motion control?
Sorry? What? Yeah?
What do you use to recognize the key presses? Do you have like pads, like resistive pads on the keys?
Electric pads or? No, when Matthias started his research, he did actually, because the first time I was in Zurich, like 10 years ago, he transformed his own bass clarinet with a system with sensors on every key, and there are like a lot. And so when I would press this one, for example, or whatever one, it would send a signal to the computer. So I also developed software. He was cooperating with a software engineer also, and hardware engineers. And it was really amazing, you know. If you programmed it well, you could write letters with it and complete reports. A bit clumsy maybe, but one of his goals also was to spread this technology, that more people would use it, and that would also make it interesting for composers to compose pieces for it, because if you would compose for it, more people could perform it across Europe or worldwide. So in the end, he decided that because he talked with one of the manufacturers, Selmer, and they didn't want to spend these quite expensive instruments to be drilled and to put another electronics in it. And he also noticed that a lot of musicians were not really fond of putting more holes into their instrument. And of course, a bit strange, because in the factory, they're also drilling holes in the wood because you have to attach the keys. So in the end, he decided to keep it kind of simple, to only work with a motion sensor and some buttons. I forgot to mention also have here 2 buttons, so a device. So, yeah.
To what extent are these home-built things or more commercialized products?
For this one, I'm not sure what status is. The idea was to build a company around it, the Sabre sensor, it's called after Sensor Augmented Bass Clarinet Research. they have still in stock. I'm not sure if they're actively producing. I know one of the software engineers is still maintaining the software, so that's a good thing. I'm quite in direct contact with him also. But Matthias noticed that to put a company around it, it takes more than just producing and selling stuff. You also need to deliver support, to have some people helping you for a long term. And I think in first he mainly worked with students, so that's not a long-term stable thing. So I'm not sure. He's still actively promoting it himself too and trying to sell it. So I'm not sure what the status is. The ring is made by some Scandinavian company. I'm not sure which country. And I thought I was a little bit in doubt if they are still active, because I sent an email to update software to go along with new Apple Silicon chips, because they still haven't updated yet. But I never got a response, and I also saw that other musicians working with it complained about it. But last week I got a Black Friday offer in my mailbox by the company, so so I think they are still actively selling and promoting it. And since a few months there's a new company, at least on the market, it's called Somi, but they are more advertising towards dancers, and it's a bracelet, a bit same like the ring you can put on. I haven't bought any one because for me it's not so easy to have the bracelet here, because here I can use my fingers to press the button. So for me this is much more convenient than having the bracelet. But never say no. So,
is that on your mind, how your pieces can be played in the future when these devices are maybe not available? I know a friend of mine is struggling to prepare piano like Cage prepared it, because you don't get this stuff anymore.
No, indeed, and that's of course that's you know the bass clarinet is still in development, but more evolutionary. You know, they make it more playable, the keys. So material-wise, you have to look for new wood maybe, or but with electronics, like everyone, you have to maintain the software mainly. I think that's, and of course also hardware can break. And if I'm very careful with it, I hope the center will work for the next 10 years or maybe 15 or whatever. This is with Bluetooth. I think still Bluetooth 4.1, and of course also the Bluetooth protocol. I think it's until now still backwards compatible with the old. I don't know how far back. But I can imagine that the Bluetooth working group at some point says from 7.0 we are not supporting the old protocols anymore or something. Yeah. And that's, I'm also asking the software engineer that's building the software to connect this and this device to send me the source code so I can look into it and maybe in the future convert to Python, because I think Python is quite stable for the near future, software-wise. But he's still not sure about what he's going to do, and I still have to ask him for adapting things. So yeah, it's always a struggle, but I think on the other side, new companies are also inventing and experimenting with new devices, like I call the Somi company. So I'm not really afraid, because I think if this one should not work anymore, I think I can maybe substitute it with some other stuff. Or, you know, I can put a ring around here maybe and find my own way. Or I have to adapt the pieces. Yeah. No.
So if I understand you correctly, the sensors are now combining like the interface with also some musical conversions of that. So wouldn't it be, well, more sustainable if like the interface and the software and those components become separated?
Now then I think I misexplained, because the software that comes with Sauber has its own, some audio effects that are quite nice, but you know, it's not, you can only do with it. But I mainly use the software as well as this one to read out the data and then send the data to my music software.
Yeah, because I can imagine that those sensors would be used for all other kind of things.
Yes, that's true.
And then, of course, the development of those sensors will involve as well.
Yeah.
There's many users in different segments. And then
Yeah, but
more sustainable.
yeah, for the music part, I use Ableton Live software, mostly used, I think, in live electronic performances. And of course, that's still in active development. And I use it separately from the sensor. So I use the sensor software purely to read out the data, not to create the music. And I use some Python scripts in between to translate between the sensor software and to the Ableton software, also to make conditions. And also the company of this ring, I use it for music, and they, if you look on the, it's called Genki Instruments, the company. And they have one part that says for music. There's also a part on their website for work. And they also, I think it's maybe some different kind of software, differently, and you can like use it for give a presentation and swipe to the next slide. So they already use it for in another environment. I can use also maybe program for use at home automation. Yeah. Yeah, I need closing the curtains or putting down the blinds or whatever. So. Last question, or I don't know if, yeah.
I also studied physics.
I should warn you about that, by the way. Sorry to break in, because I know some, but I think physicists are also regarded as the most annoying people in the world, because they think they are always right. So people get annoyed by it, and actually they are. So yeah. So yeah.
But then I'm confused. I switched to industrial design. There's a depth of wanting to combine this technology.
Yeah.
Anything creative for me, that's design.
Yeah, design is.
And also you can try to start a foundation that's combining those.
Don't do that. It's too much work. No, go do it.
My question for you is, what part of this, is it either the music or the science or the technology, gives the most friction? Which part is the least eager to cooperate? Is it the technology people who are like, well, I don't quite care for the creative implementation of this technology I thought? Or is it the composers that are like, well, let me stick to my piano?
I think that's mainly dependent on the persons you're working with and talking to. Of course, there are composers who prefer working with orchestras or just the classical or jazz stuff. But there are also a lot of composers, especially nowadays, and I think if you go to Berlin, there are a lot of them there, experimenting with electronics. I just heard Cage, he was experimenting. And so, and same goes for engineers and scientists. You know, some scientists and engineers just go like their own field and don't look outside. But I think there are also a lot of engineers and scientists walking around who are really interested in how to use technology. Like I met the student team on the university, Team Hart. I met them here in the, what?
I am very familiar with it.
Yeah, I met them here in the Innovation Café actually. So we started talking, and the students were really enthusiastic to combine their technology with music, and they still are. So, but maybe if I would have been 1 year earlier or a few years later, maybe there's a student team who doesn't have interest at all. So, yeah.
Currently there's an art and technology student team.
Okay.
Just a new foundation.
Okay.
Maybe also.
Yeah. Maybe we should have chat afterwards a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, I want to perform one last piece, and then we can have a drink. I hope you're not that thirsty yet, but. Oh, Robert will.